How's it going? So, my initial idea when I started this study group was because after studying the holy text, and I guess being a theologian and a intellect and a polymath in the year 2024 is definitely different than it was in the Renaissance period. But the reason why I started this group, this study, is because through the study of just this one text, the Yoga Sutras, could end all the suffering on earth. And I mean all of it. So the information turns into thought, thought turns into reality. But what's a revelation for me is, number one, even when you're not judging people, welcome. Thanks for coming. Hopefully you'll stay for the study. We'll begin shortly, I guess. Didn't know if anybody was coming or not. But even though I didn't judge certain people, I guess the fact that I live a somewhat disciplined life and I avoid sin, I think that offends them. And then, like, how they see themselves comes out. Like, for example, I look like this, and I don't judge people for being overweight. You know, my best female friend is like over 500 pounds. So I don't, think people are fat or call people fat or anything like that, or judge people for being overweight. But yet, in this setting, these people are commenting on, like it's coming up that they're fat. And like, I'm sitting there and I'm assessing it, I'm discerning it, and I'm like, oh, these people don't like me because I'm disciplined and I don't eat, but I'm not judging them, but they're judging themselves. And then for that reason, they don't like me, or they're talking about me behind my back. And my intuition's going crazy. My intuition's like telling me everything. And I guess when you can see wickedness doesn't like you, even though you're being loving and kind and wise and moral and godly and trying to be something light in this world. There's always something that they don't like you, right? Like, for example, this study group I did out of the goodness of my heart, spent years of my life studying this text. I'm doing it to end suffering and help humanity. But like, my intuition tells me that the person who comes in is just there to like go and report it to other people. And like, the reason why I'm thinking about stopping it is because all people are going to talk about, even though I'm presenting, a spiritual text that's 2,600 years old, profound, and one of the most important spiritual texts ever written, up there with the Bible and the Dhammapada. All people are going to talk about was how many people showed up. Was it successful? How did his hair look? Is he crazy or not? And it hurts. I mean, you'd have to not have a heart not to feel it. And when you're let down by the people that you love and people who are supposed to be your friends, and again, for my real friends, I'm not talking about you. Of course, everything that you say has to get, one person says, oh, why didn't you like your last job? I said, well, it was kind of competitive and about the money and all the yoga community. I have no issues with the yoga community. I worked for a corporation. It's like everything that you say, they're trying to like use it against you, no matter what it is. That's why silence is golden. And then when you act silent and at peace, they can't let you be like that. Like they have to suck you in to that anxious, loudmouth talk. And it's like, that's not who I am. And in the past, people were disrespectful, and for a long time I just took it. Then I got fed up with it. And when people started acting disrespectful towards me, I stood up for myself. And then when I started doing that, then they started spreading all these lies and rumors and all this other stuff about me. Meanwhile, I'm like, trying to help the poor, feed the sick, healing people like every day. And then even that, like I do Reiki, it's a well-known thing, you know, prayer healing, energy healing. It's old, it's true. But like even that, they're like, oh, Reiki this, Reiki that. Then 10 seconds later, they're like, oh, I need 5 surgeries. Right. So I don't know if I'm going to continue this study or not because my initial outlook was positive, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to hold the study group. I'll stick in there through the punches and the this and the that, and eventually society might take in this text. 196 lines of the Yoga Sutras. Of the 196 lines, you definitely need at least 160 of them. They're extremely important. They explain why we suffer, why we stress, what the causes of stress are, what the results of the causes of the stress are, the symptoms of stress, what causes pain, what causes illness in the body. How's it going? Thanks for joining. I'm doing a little chatting right now. You're welcome to comment below what the stresses are, what the causes for pain in the body, and ultimately the cause of all the suffering is attachment from the soul to the physical plane. And I just feel that even if you start speaking about the soul, like, can anybody have an intelligent conversation about the soul? Like, how come people don't talk about it? And then when you talk about it, it's abnormal. So like, it's Friday night now. I got one person here with me now. How's it going? Congratulations, you're not at the bar. So like, because on Friday night, I don't want to go out to the bar. I don't want to go gambling. I don't want to go to do anything that's unholy, really. Like, so because I don't want to do that, like I'm such the odd man out. And then like the people who I used to sin with, they don't like me anymore. And it's not that I don't like them, because I do. It's just that I don't want to sin anymore. And because I don't want to sin anymore, they don't like it. But then the same people who sin with you, they're nowhere to be found when you need them. Like, they'll sin with you, they'll laugh it up, they'll drink with you, they'll do anything with you. But then when you need them, they're nowhere to be found. So it's like, I just stopped doing that stuff for my own well-being because it was leading me down a path of destruction. And everybody, just the whole trip was such an upward battle. Like, there's not anybody in my life who hasn't let me down. And I did my best to try to lift people up. And I still do. And the best way to do that really is with these texts. The Yoga Sutras, the Dhammapada, the Holy Bible, those 3 texts I'm very good with, especially the Yoga Sutras. So when I'm trying to present the Yoga Sutras to you guys, really I'm introducing you down a path that leads to no suffering. And if we all studied the Yoga Sutras, there would be no suffering on earth. Like, that's just how it is. But each person has to like want to study it. And I just think that people would rather go out and drink because I don't know why, really. Well, I mean, the social gatherings, there's so much social pressure there. And there's a lot of anxiety. The other day, I went to a gathering and I was completely at peace and calm in my body, like completely at peace and calm. And it was viewed as like, oh, he's non-social. I'm not non-social, but everybody else was just talking loud and eating food to like numb the pain. And I don't numb the pain. Like, I experience the pain. And the Yoga Sutra says you're supposed to experience the pain for purification. So I stopped running and hiding from my pain a long time ago. And the pain that I've endured in my life would kill 95% of anybody that I know. My life has been so painful. But why is that viewed in that type of way? Like the ignorance is so bad that you can give somebody sound advice like, instead of getting surgery on your hernia, you should do a little bit of yoga and contraction exercises in your abdomen and strengthen the ligaments and the muscles around that and around your knee, because really the surgeries aren't going to help you. Like, just advice like that. It's like, what's abnormal about that? Like, the common sense and the actual intelligence and logical inference is so bad. It's so bad. And you can't have an intelligent conversation, because when you have the intelligent conversation and the ignorance is targeted, when the ignorance is targeted, there's an emotional outburst, right? So you're having an intelligent conversation with someone, and by the way, they started it. You didn't start it, and they're telling you how they're in pain, and you're telling them, well, this is what you need to do. And then they like yell at you or make fun of you or disrespect you or say terrible, terrible things to you. Absolutely horrible things. Talk about you behind your back, say you're this, say you're that, say you're crazy. But when you try to respond intelligently, they'll do anything but have the intelligent conversation. Anything. They will sink so low. The stuff that people say, the stuff that people do, it's so low. It doesn't shock me anymore. Like, it's such a low blow. There's no honor in it. There's no respect in it. There's no knowledge in it. There's no care in it. It's absolutely empty and hollow. It hurts my spirit and my soul to even be in the same space. So I don't know if I'm going to be continuing this study or not, because I'm telling you right now, all people are looking at are the ratings. I don't even know if I want to read the second Potter right now. Oh, let me just give you 2 lines. Not that anybody's going to make it to this part of the video. Because the truth, you can't speak the truth. If you tell the truth, it just ignites all of this nonsense, just absolute evil, wickedness, just pure evil. Yeah. It hurts to be in the presence of evil. You understand? But people numb themselves because they don't want to deal with other people's evil and their own evil as well. People won't admit that they're evil or wicked. When I saw my own wickedness, when I see my own wickedness, it literally makes me sick to my stomach. How's it going? Thanks for coming. One day I'll give a full account on what happened in my life. So the second pada is practice. Thanks for joining. Please comment below. Say hi. I'd appreciate it. And the first pada is dharma. So the first pada is like law and universal truth. And the second pada is practice. And the first 2 padas are really, really important. I'm not even going to do the whole thing today. I'm just going to give a couple sutras since you're here. Sutra 2.3 says, ignorance, egotism, desire for pleasure, aversion to pain, and fear of death are the 5 afflictions which disturb the equilibrium of consciousness. The second translation, the 5 obstacles to spiritual enlightenment are lack of wisdom, self-centeredness, attachment, hatred, and clinging to bodily life. Sutra 2.4 is probably one of the most important sentences ever spoken in the history of mankind. Lack of wisdom is the source of all suffering. Wait a second. You're telling me that the fact that we lack knowledge is the reason why there's all pain and suffering in the world? Is that why you're telling me? Yeah. Jesus himself, my people suffer from lack of knowledge. And God forbid you name Jesus' name. If you say Jesus' name, that's it. That's it. the conversation's over, everything's dead, the sinners start to like gang up on you, try to kill you. Yeah. Sutra 2.5. Grasping at things that are impermanent, misjudging the pure and impure, aversion to pain, desire for pleasure, and self-centeredness are caused by lack of wisdom. So first, it's lack of wisdom. What does lack of wisdom cause? The lack of wisdom causes grasping at things that are impermanent, misjudging the pure and impure, aversion to pain, desire for pleasure, and self-centeredness. That's what lack of knowledge causes. Well, why do we want these things, and what knowledge do we lack, and why do we deny the knowledge that we need in order to stop the pain and the suffering to begin with? Well, we can get into the 7 deadly sins: pride, lust, greed. 2.6. Because the truth is so ugly. It's so ugly. And when you can see from your heart, you can see other people's hearts. And when you can see other people's hearts, they don't like it. They just don't like it because they're hiding behind this veil of lies and truths, denying who they are, lying to everybody else, chasing success at anybody else's cause. I mean, I've seen a lot of compassion and love in the world. It's definitely there, but the ugliness is just so, ugh. It's so disgusting. Sutra 2.6. Asmita egotism is when one considers themselves to be the mind and the body. Nobody watching now. 2.7. Here we go. Pleasure results in desire and emotional attachment. Again, this is the stuff that everybody needs to know. What causes all my stress? What's causing me to go to the doctor? What's causing me to be in pain? What's causing me to have depression? What's causing me to have these things? Well, you need to study the entire book. It's 196 lines. How hard is it to read 196 lines? I mean, how hard is that? Because people can't even read. They can read, but they can only read. They don't read anymore. And it's not even that. If the programming was good. See, the videos are better in ways because you can get more information in and it force feeds you the information, whereas reading takes more mental effort, right? But it's Friday night. So far, we had 4 people in the chat. They came in, they left. Nobody wants to study on a Friday night. What do people want to do? Sutra 2.8. The mental impressions left by pain result in hatred. Okay, so this right here, Sutra 2.7, 2.8, this is the beginning of duality that keeps your soul fettered into reality. Ultimately denying your own pain, denying your own anxiety, denying the fact that the world is messed up because of sin, right? Well, you can call it sin, but here it's polite. It doesn't even say sin. It explains it to you in a way that's completely and totally non-offensive. But I guess it doesn't, I don't know, show nakedness or spark people's anger or something like that. I guess who wants to study a theologian text when there's a billion other things to do? So here, pleasure results in desire and emotional attachment. These 2 sutras, the mental impressions left by pain result in hatred. Suffering leads to aversion. Because if you go on, the stuff that they talk about is anything but the fact that you're presenting a fact to them of a factual text that will help them and help them to stop suffering. Why? Because you have to put effort into it. Instead of, watching a movie, you have to meditate, spend time in silence, ponder God, these types of things. And people don't want to do it. In fact, like, it's so... Sutra 2.9. Attachment to life and self-preservation are the most subtle hindrance. Even the wise struggle with this affliction. Sutra 2.10. I wonder if people are going to watch it. People probably watch the first 10 seconds and then make judgments and then go and tell everybody about it. You know what I mean? But hey, my hair looks good tonight, doesn't it? How am I looking? All right. I'm looking good. I'm looking strong. Good. I feel good and strong too. Last man standing, right? 210. Hindrances and fetters can be relinquished by eliminating self-centeredness and returning the mind to clarity, which is its natural state. So here, the mind has basically three main things. It has the intellect, which is I understand. Intellect here, right? Then it has your ego, which I really want to replace the word ego with personality. But it also means I consciousness. Well, I don't like what he just said, or I love what he just said, or oh, that makes me angry, or oh, that makes me so happy. As soon as you I interpret it, that's your personality, right? The third process of your mind is the memory. These three processes are constantly working, okay? But they cause fluctuations which disturb your equilibrium and agitate you emotionally because you lack the knowledge that the whole of existence is in a state of vibration. So ridding yourself from defilements and effluence, freeing your soul from fetters and your mind and your heart from sin is basically the way that you can purify your heart and your soul so that it no longer fetters to reality. And then you come to a place of peace, happiness. It's peace and happiness. The peace and the happiness are better than the fun. I used to love having fun. Yeah. This is fun to me, actually. I actually enjoy it. And the other thing is I'm reading this book on St. Vincent Ferrer. So my name's Vincent Ferrer because my life has been supernatural and unbelievable. In fact, I can't even talk to my life except to a few people, and even to them, I'm selective with what I say. But let me just tell you, again, I don't think that anybody's even going to watch this at this point. I don't care. That I was named Vincent Ferrer III, and I knew I was named after a saint, and I knew that my grandfather's name was Pascalicchio, and it was changed over to Ferrer. I didn't know why, but I was told that they were racist towards Sicilians, and he was a doctor, so when he came here, he changed his name to Ferrer so he wouldn't be discriminated on. But it wasn't until last night that I started reading one of Vincent Ferrer's books. He was alive around 1300 to 1490 AD. Hi, thanks for coming. And it turns out that he was a theologian, and he was also educated in physics and spiritual sciences, and he could speak very well. He was also pretty good looking. And when I realized that I was a theologian who was also a polymath, who was also educated in physics and spiritual sciences, I said, whoa. Now, this is after I've already written 2 books. I didn't know that he was like that, but that's the saint that I'm named after. But it's just that type of thing that my whole life's been about. So here, Sutra 211, if you're interested in the sutras. Through practice of meditation, the fluctuations of consciousness created by gross and subtle afflictions are silenced. So when we meditate, what we're doing is we're discerning and we're introspecting our own thoughts and mind. And as we do this, you start by eliminating the negative thoughts, creating positive thoughts, but you go deeper and deeper into yourself. And in the text, it says that the yogi has to know the difference between the intellect and the soul. Now, when I was young, when I was a kid, one of my worst fears was that when you die, there's nothing. There's like, even your consciousness is gone. That was like one of my fears when I was a kid. But it wasn't through years and years of practice and study that I became self-realized and realized that I actually have a soul. So now I know where my soul is and I'm in touch with it all the time. So when you're practicing meditation, you're calming your mind so that your mind and your soul become one. See? But there's a process that you have to go through. The process of study, the process of purification, the process of gaining altruism and virtues, and eliminating your effluence and non-virtues, and increasing your concentration and purifying and strengthening your body. It's a very devout type of process. I'm not even going to read this one. Not going to read this one. Here we go. Nah, I'm going to skip this one too. Here, this one's important. 215. Transformations cause misery, mental impressions cause suffering, and the conflict of the energetic forces of the universe cause discomfort. Therefore, wise and discriminative beings see that all life is tinged with pain and suffering. Wow. So, impermanence means that everything is constantly transforming. But when you get to the higher levels of consciousness, third eye chakra, crown chakra, non-dualistic knowledge. It's just the whole universe is transforming and it causes misery because what you love gets taken from you. Things are forced on you that you don't like. You have to be in the presence of unpleasantness. You have people make fun of you, slander you, emotionally harm you, some physically harm, right? Mental impressions cause suffering. So here, the bad mental impressions, the unhappy mental impressions, they make me unhappy. They make me sad. They make me angry. The positive mental impressions, they make me want more. They make me miss what I had. See? The conflict of the energetic forces of the universe cause discomfort. You know, how many times I had people tell me that I made them feel uncomfortable. That was like one of these complaints that I had. So apparently, unless I was like drinking it up and, you know, laughing with people like it was funny and doing what everybody else was doing, if I was doing that, nobody was uncomfortable. As long as I was ruining my life and drinking myself to death, everybody was fine, right? But as soon as I stepped off the wagon, everybody says, oh, you make us uncomfortable. Then try to explain to somebody, look, it's not my fault you're uncomfortable. It's actually the energetic forces of the universe that are pushing creation forward that are making you uncomfortable, right? That might be fine if you're talking with somebody who's humble, intelligent, balanced, genius. But otherwise, it's just then they get emotionally aggressive. And then afterwards, when you stand up for yourself, they try to put it on you. He was aggressive towards me. What'd you do? I did nothing. What? No, he's lying. He didn't say that. Yeah, right. Therefore, wise and discriminative beings see that all life is tinged with pain and suffering. Okay? So the reason why I'm not out at the bar drinking, the reason why I'm meditating and studying the sutras is because I know going to that bar is going to lead me to nothing but ruin and unhappiness. There's nothing there for me. There's nothing that I want there. I don't want the alcohol. I don't want anything there. There's nothing there for me to offer. 216. It is possible to prevent future suffering. Again, here, this is one of the most important sutras. So wait a second. You're telling me that all the pain that I'm going through, the emotional pain, the mental pain, the suffering is preventable? Yes. All pain and suffering on earth is preventable. How do you do it? Right here. 217. Preventing contact between the soul and the perceivable world prevents future suffering. Wait a second. Preventing contact between the soul and the perceivable world prevents future suffering? Yup. Well, how do I keep my soul from attaching to the physical plane? Great question. 218. This one we're not going to read. Here we go. The soul is only the pure power of seeing which observes the world through the mirror of the mind. Okay. So the soul is found in the heart. It's the inner right chamber of the heart. It's the size of your thumbnail. That's where your soul resides. Do your research, follow your thoughts and your memories. And if you meditate internally on your thoughts and your memories in your mind, you'll notice that the soul is in the heart. And the soul sees things through the mind. And it's actually broken down really, really well. You have the 5 gross senses and the 5 gross organs, right? You have the physical eyes, the physical ears, the physical nose, the physical tongue, and the physical skin and body, right? And each of these have the 5 main senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and feeling. It's through these organs and senses that the soul perceives the outside world. This Yoga Sutras gets into it because when you're dreaming, you're experiencing something with your senses, but you don't have any physical senses. So you're experiencing consciousness without these physical senses. Now here it tells you what is experienced through the senses exists for the purpose of the soul's emancipation. So what is the purpose of this? To emancipate your soul. Well, if you don't know that, I'm going to skip this. Okay. The state of union between the soul and the seen is for the soul to discover its own true nature. So the whole point that you're experiencing this, the reason why you're experiencing this pain, the reason why you're going through the samsara is for you to realize your soul. It's also to enjoy life. 224. Lack of wisdom is the root cause of the soul becoming attached to the physical world. So the only reason why we keep attaching over and over again is because we don't have the wisdom. What wisdom? The wisdom that's in this text. It's 196 verses. Of them, really, you can get away with 160. That's all you really need. If you get these 160 verses down and you practice your meditation, you can free your soul from being fettered to the physical plane. Right. Let's look up the number of people who are on anxiety medication, who are addicted to things, who are hurting people, who are doing all sorts of things. And if you look at that, and if you've been through the suffering and the pain, and when you realize it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, what you put in your eyes, who you sleep with, how much of it you get, it doesn't matter how much. You'll never be satisfied with the physical realm, ever. Not completely. You'll get temporary happiness, but it probably leads to unhappiness. And you just want more, and you go to this, and you get bored. But there's never a deep peace. There's never a deep peace there. And the thing is that because the humans are connected, when you start to get to this level of sensitivity, you have to deal with other people's suffering. Not only that, they're disrespectful, they're rude, they're obnoxious, they lie, they're greedy. These are all qualities, see? And then, well, when you stop doing them yourself, you see, because it's not, Buddha says, if you control others, you control nothing. If you control yourself, you control everything. But the more that you focus on yourself and eliminate your own effluence, your own weaknesses, your own defilements, the more wickedness hates you, you see? Because the wicked hates the good. Because the wicked have to see themselves in the good. Because the good are shining light and truth. But the wicked's brain and heart is filled with darkness and sin. So when they look at somebody who's in the light like that, they see themselves. It makes them feel like they're being judged, but you're really not judging them. You're just being nice, really. But the fact that you have perfected morality and you're striving to be a perfected good person in a world that leads you either towards worldliness or enlightenment, the Buddha says the path to enlightenment and the path to worldly goods is two different paths. Christianity, it's based on poverty. Poverty is a big part of Christianity. And Jesus says it's easier to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to reach the kingdom of heaven. So when you start to study the text and put them all together, but the reason why I like the Yoga Sutras so much is because it's not watered down and it doesn't have like a big historical figure like Jesus, even though I love Jesus with all my heart, my Lord and Savior. Like it's very non-offensive and it applies to all beings at all times. It's short and concise and leads the soul directly to being unleashed, unhindered, unencumbered. It frees your soul from hell. 225. Through proper knowledge, the light of wisdom dawns, destroying ignorance and liberating the soul from the perceivable world. Okay, Sutra 226 is also another good one. Steady, uninterrupted discernment eradicates ignorance, the source of pain. So when you're sitting there contemplating like this, you're actually activating this part of the brain when you're doing it. You're literally, I can feel this part of the brain turn on. See? And I'm discerning. And if you sit there and discern for long enough, days, months, years, a decade, eventually it eradicates all the ignorance. Well, when you, let's say we study the sutras on Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you watch violent movie, horror movie, news, junk, sex stuff. It erases this, you see? And the more and more that you indulge in the senses, the more and more that the soul becomes enmeshed. And the more and more meshed that the soul becomes, the harder and harder it is to get it out. And when you first start pulling the senses out of pleasure, you literally go through withdrawal. But if you're having anxiety, can't sleep, have pain in your body, all these things, you have to see that it's happening for this reason. And it doesn't matter what medication that you take, if you drink, you eat, or whatever it is, it's not the only way to overcome it is through this. It's the only way. Sutra 228. Through devout practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, impurities are destroyed and the crown of wisdom radiates gloriously. I'm getting there. There were a couple things that I couldn't give up, but I just had a very, very painful experience, which really opened up my eyes. And the last couple of things that I couldn't give up, yeah. You want to believe that true love exists in the world, and it does somewhere in short periods of time. But when you're seeking comfort in someone other than yourself, yeah. 230. Nonviolence, truthfulness, and never stealing, abstaining from sexual activity, and non-possessiveness are the universal moralities. Sutra 231. These noble vows are universal and applied to any social class, location, time, or circumstance. Sutra 232. Purity, contentment, self-discipline, study. Study. Here it is, right here in the text. 2,600 years old, factual text written by one of the original, most smartest sages in the world, Patanjali, says you have to study. You have to study. And worship of God. Here it is. Worship of God. Ishvari Pranidhana are the observances. You have to do these. You have to do these. Sutra 233. When disturbing negative thoughts arise, think of their opposite. Sutra 234. When negative thoughts or actions are done, either directly or indirectly, or even approved of, it is caused by greed, anger, or delusion, and is either mild, medium, or intense in degree. Through introspection, the cycle of pain and ignorance is ended. Sutra 235. When you master nonviolence in speech, thought, and action, your aggressive nature is relinquished. All beings then abandon hostility in your presence. You still experience their pain, though, and it's still unpleasant to hear them say the things that they say. They can't control themselves. People can't. When they're in the presence of true light like that and true wisdom, they just like diarrhea of the mouth, really. Sutra 236. When one masters honesty, any word spoken instantly manifests into reality. 237. When you completely abandon stealing as an option, wealth and abundance will come to you. Knowledge, vigor, valor, and energy flow to one who has mastered continence, celibacy. When you're celibate for a long amount of time, your body stops producing all of the sperm and the other chemicals, and instead of producing them, you gain magnetism and gain energy in your body, and your body puts its energy into creating ohas and spiritual energy instead of creating the sexual energy. That's only practiced through continence. It takes 3 months of being celibate for the body to really put all of its energy into creating spiritual energy instead of creating sexual energy. Sutra 239. When one is free from greed for possessions, the details of previous births become known. That's why I'm studying it. As a result of practicing purity, one develops disinterest in contacts with others for self-gratification. So basically, if you practice purity for a long enough amount of time, you won't want to have sex or touch the other sex anymore, or touch anybody anymore for that reason. So after you get to a certain level of purity, that naturally falls away. When you have to conquer the desire for sex. Then for me, it wasn't conquering the desire for sex. It was conquering the longing to have like a wife or a woman. That was the hard thing. But after you get through the desire for sex, then when you're introspecting, when sexual thoughts come up, or when like, because if you go 7 days in meditation in the woods, you'll have no sexual thoughts at all. But then when you go to town to get food and you see the opposite sex, well, I'm heterosexual, all of a sudden those desires come back. You're like, oh my God, you see a beautiful woman or a beautiful man. Oh. So conquering the lust itself, then when you conquer it, staying in that state of concentration to keep it from arising again it's something for most people that takes a lot of practice. It's not something that comes easily to most people because the body's set up like that. Conquering your mind takes diligent, sincere, motivated practice to do. Sutra 241. When the body is cleansed, the mind purified, and the senses controlled, joyful awareness needed to perceive the soul occurs. (242). When one masters contentment, supreme joy is attained. By accepting but not causing pain, impurities of the bodies and senses are destroyed and higher powers acquired. When they say higher powers, they're also meaning like, art, math, thinking, creating. They're also talking about, a higher functioning mind rather than a lower functioning one. 243. Self-discipline, tapas, burns away impurities and sparks a holy spiritual fire, giving one occult powers. Sutra 244. Through devout study, higher understanding is achieved. This is why I'm studying with you guys. Through devout study, repeated devout study. This is my 100th time reading this text, easy. And I read basically every translation, read the Sanskrit, learned the whole thing, and I'm still studying the text. Until you reach the final level and you don't need to know anything more because you're omniscient and omnipresent. But the omniscience and omnipresence can easily be brought down if you haven't mastered your morality. I still feel everybody else's pain. I still feel it. I feel it extremely deeply. I feel it in my soul. 245. Surrender to God leads to perfection in samadhi. Right here, surrendering to God. Sutra 246. Thanks for joining. I would love if you question or comment below. Say hi. Sutra 246. The posture should be steady, comfortable, and aware. All right. So now, this conversation that I keep talking about, now in 14 years of teaching yoga to the public and doing healings, I've come across so many people. I lost count to how many people had physical issues, okay? And the reason why the yogic system teaches the yoga asana starting to people when they're young, or the reason why the yogic system starts with asana, is because the physical body has to be at a certain level of strength. See, now the mind and the body are very intimately related, okay? But if the physical body isn't brought to a certain level of strength, you'll never have the strength to be able to sit steady, comfortable, and aware. And after the physical body reaches a certain level of strength, then when you're sitting, you'll notice that you're moving around and all that stuff is caused by the mind. Then the other thing is the pain, you see. You have to build tolerance to pain. If you're doing the austerities, you will build more and more tolerance to pain. If you don't do the austerities, you'll build less and less tolerance to pain, and you'll be more and more reliant on outside things to kill your pain. So that process can take anywhere from 3 years to 8 years, maybe 11. But if you practice sincerely, 3 to 8 years to strengthen your body enough to where it's tough enough to where you can sit steady, comfortable, and aware. Asana is a firm body, steady intellect, and benevolent spirit. Sutra 247. One has mastered asana when exertion becomes effortless and the mind is focused on infinity. So when you can sit effortlessly and focus your mind on infinity, you've mastered the third limb of yoga, which is asana. And I think this next sutra is extremely important if I'm correct. Yes. So here, this right here, this sutra, after one has mastered asana, they will no longer be disturbed by pairs of opposites. How important is that? As soon as you master keeping your body still, I do the qigong postures as well. I do the standing postures in public. And when I'm standing in public like this, if I'm focused on myself, if a pair of opposites walks by, it'll throw you off balance. So when you're balancing like that, as soon as you master asana, you're no longer disturbed by pairs of opposites. This takes training. Thanks for joining. After asana is mastered, regulation of inhalation and exhalation should be practiced. So now this is important. You're supposed to master asana first before you go into your breathing techniques. I personally did not master asana before I started doing my breathing techniques. And what I noticed was if you don't master asana and you do your breathing techniques, the more that you're doing your breathing techniques, if your mind is too anxious, it can actually do more harm to your body, because the stress of the mind causes pain and in the body. So the stressing of the mind disturbs the elements in the body. So when you master asana first and you do your breathing techniques, it does less damage. But if you're going to have to choose between doing the breathing techniques and not, you're better off doing them than not doing them. But before you do them, do your best to put your body in a comfortable state and your mind in a state that's not agitated or hateful. And if it is, then try to slow your breathing down. Calm the body, slow the breathing down, and go into it like that. I'm going to skip this. I'll say this one. 251. I've been doing energy work for 14 years. I'm a Reiki master, a Qigong master. My internal alchemy is extremely advanced. As humbly as possible, I'm saying it. There is a fourth kind of pranayama that is more subtle than the three gross aspects. So right here in a 2,600-year-old text, they're telling you that you start with the breath, but after that, you can go into actually changing energy. Doing breath work leads to the awareness of the energy fields. 252. When one masters breath regulation and awareness, the veil covering the light of knowledge is removed and true wisdom dawns. When one is accomplished in the practice of pranayama, the mind becomes ready for concentration. So the yogic system, from what I know, is mainly controlled breath, controlled in, controlled out. But the Buddhist system has vipassana, which is just observing the breath. I do both. And when I do my breath work where I'm controlling the breath, I'm also doing internal alchemy and I'm doing all sorts of stuff. But the vipassana is better because it teaches you to observe and not control. But even vipassana, the Buddha taught vipassana to all his students. By observing the breath, that prepares your mind for concentration. Pratyahara is withdrawing the senses, mind, and consciousness away from contact with external objects and inwards towards the soul. So now we're going from the asana, the physical body, pranayama, the breath work, the energy work, pratyahara, withdrawing your senses inwards towards the soul. One gains complete mastery over the sensory organs from the practice of pratyahara. And then it goes into progression. And in the next pada, it goes into the next three, which is the more subtle and the higher limbs of yoga, which are concentration, meditation, and absorption. So the yogic system is set up absolutely beautifully. And the limbs are set up like that so you can practice each one. But it builds from the dharma to the practice to the top three limbs and the progression in the spiritual level. Thanks for coming, guys. Any questions, comments? Want to say hello? All good. I had planned to keep this study going. At this point, I'm becoming uncertain. If you want me to keep the study going, please let me know. As of right now, I'll keep it going, but I'm unsure if I want to keep it. Initially, I had planned to do it for a couple years. The saint who I'm named after, Saint Vincent Ferrer, he actually taught theology and other spiritual sciences for 3 to 4 years in certain cities and then moved on. I really feel it's a calling. I translated the text and I really want to teach this text to the public. I just feel like we live in a time that I don't know if it's the proper time period to be teaching this text in public. But 3 viewers tonight. So, yeah. If you can bring the text with you, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You can bring your own text with you, or you can observe the text that I have. Usually I put it up on the board. It'll look like this when I do it. So usually I put it up on the board like that, but you can also bring the text with you. I also sell my version, my translation of the text. It's Yoga Sutras by Vincent Ferra. You can look in my pages. I have a bunch of links to it, but it's on Amazon. And yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate you. Be well.